Discover the incredible, unexpected impact of MSG, a life-changing journey inside your body. The diner was alive with laughter and the clinking of plates, steam rising from the thick, savory broth of chicken noodle soup that wafted through the air. For Sarah, it was more than just a workplace, it was home. The little diner, tucked between a thrift store and a barbershop in their tight-knit Midwestern town, stood as a beacon of comfort in a world that often felt harsh and judgmental. Yet, lately, swirling discussions about MSG, spurred by a series of health seminars at the local community center, cast a shadow over the bustling establishment. Jake, her inquisitive teenager, watched as the warm steam fogged up the window while a group of regulars animatedly debated the safety of diner fare. His bright eyes flickered with conflict, the savory flavors of his childhood meals now caught in the crosshairs of nutrition debates. "Mom, do we really need to keep using MSG?" he asked one night, concern edging his voice. Sarah, wiping her hands on her apron, felt the sudden tightness in her chest. To him, it was just a question, but for her, it felt like a betrayal. These recipes were steeped in history and love. "Listen, Jake," she said, her voice steady, "those flavors are what people come for. It's what connects us." She glared at her son, fear creeping up on her as she imagined the repercussions of these newfound beliefs. As winter deepened, the diner transformed into a refuge from the chilling winds outside. But news of an unexpected health scare linked to local dining practices rattled the community, shaking Sarah's resolve. Whispers filled the air like smoke, accusations of negligence tossed in the wind as rapidly as the snowflakes danced outside. She sensed the piercing glares, felt the judgment of those who barely dared to step in anymore. The atmosphere had shifted, where once it was filled with love and familiarity, now it strained heavy with suspicion. Sarah's heart broke a little more with each passing day. As she rinsed dishes, her fingers trembling, she found herself in a moment of reckoning. What was MSG, really? She dug deeper, learning that the pervasive fear surrounding it was steeped in misunderstanding. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she began bridging the gap with Jake, tragedy struck. Sarah received a call from her best friend, Esther, whose husband was now in the hospital, linked to the community's panic over dining practices. The family stood at the brink of despair, and so did Sarah. Suddenly, the issues became real, they weren't just talk anymore. In the whirlwind of emotions and fear, Sarah clutched Jake's arm. "We need to support them, to stand together," she said. In that moment, both mother and son realized their bond was deeper than traditional recipes or cutting-edge health trends. They needed each other now more than ever, leaving Sarah to ponder, would they rise together and heal not just their family but the community that had become so fractured with doubt and fear? The answer lingered in the air, heavy with tension, echoing an uncertain promise of a healthier tomorrow. The next morning felt different, the air thick with uncertainty as snow blanketed the diner's windows, turning the familiar view into an icy tableau. Sarah stood behind the counter, her heart pounding as she prepared for the day. The laughter and chatter of regulars had been replaced by silence and unease. She looked around, noticing how the once warm ambience had morphed into something foreign and cold. Jake arrived, his shoulders hunched as he trudged through the door. He greeted Sarah with a half-hearted smile, his eyes betraying worry. "Mom, do you think we should have a meeting?" he suggested, breaking the silence. "We can bring the community together, talk about everything, about MSG." Sarah considered it. The thought of opening that door again, after the hurtful words and icy glares, sent a shiver down her spine. But what Jake said struck a chord. "You know what, Jake? You might be onto something. Maybe this is the way to turn things around." As they began to prepare for the day, she can feel the weight of the world on her shoulders. They joined forces, cheered on by the thought of supporting Esther's family. They posted flyers around town, inviting anyone who wanted to join. "Let's cook. Let us share," Sarah wrote, her heart racing with a mixture of hope and fear. Later, the diner filled slowly but surely. The chatter resumed, albeit cautiously. Regulars exchanged uncertain glances, their past laughter still echoing faintly in their minds. Yet, when Sarah plated her famous chicken noodle soup, she felt a flicker of warmth. It was a small comfort, but it was theirs, wrapped in her mother's love. The day of the meeting arrived. Tables were set out, a vibrant display of dishes from their beloved diner. Sarah had pulled together her finest recipes, none without the infamous MSG, the secret that added so much flavor. But this time, they were paired with heartfelt stories of kitchens and family gatherings. As the community trickled in, leaders of doubt and whispers chose to stay away, yet those who truly loved the diner and its heart arrived. Sarah and Jake stood at the front, fighting nervous energy and anticipation. "Thank you for coming," Sarah began, her voice shaking slightly. "We're here not just to eat together but to understand each other's stories." Jake stepped up, nodding deeply. "We all have opinions, and that's okay. But let us choose to listen, not just to complain, but to find out what unites us." He glanced at his mother, who smiled and felt her heart swell with pride. As they shared meals and stories, the air transformed from apprehension to connection. People began to open up about their experiences, their fears, and even their favorite dishes. Slowly, conversations shifted from accusations to understanding. A few brave souls tried the soup, and with each slurp, a nod seemed to say, "Okay, maybe we can do this." But even as laughter began to fill the room again, Sarah noticed one empty chair at the far end. It was Esther's. She fought back tears, knowing the pain her friend must be feeling. Just then, a muffled commotion drew her attention. The door swung open, and there stood Esther, frail but resolute, taking in the scene before her with incredulous eyes. "Esther." Sarah rushed toward her, emotions spilling over. The community turned to her, the weight of their shared journey heavy in the air. Would they be able to confront the issues that shook the heart of their town, not only as individuals but as a united family? The moment hung, a beautiful blend of vulnerability and an urgent promise for healing. Sarah's heart raced, a turning point ahead. Would this meeting be a true beginning? Would communities come together, transcending the labeling that has divided them? Only time could tell, and Sarah was ready to find out. Esther took a hesitant step inside, her expression a mix of shock and determination. The warm glow of the diner seemed to beckon her, but a tide of uncertainty held her back. Sarah reached out, brushing her hand against Esther's arm, and the simple touch anchored them both. "Come in," Sarah urged softly, her voice soothing yet filled with urgency. She gestured to the bustling room. "Everyone is here because they care." As Esther moved deeper into the diner, whispers surged through the crowd. The regulars exchanged quiet glances, some unsure of how to approach her. Moments stretched out, thick as the falling snow outside. For Sarah, every heartbeat echoed the weight of what was happening. This was not just a meeting about food, it was a lifeline thrown to someone in need. Jake noticed the slight quiver in Esther's hands as she took a seat at the table, eyes cast down. People began to gather around her, unsure yet determined. "We missed you, Esther," a familiar voice rang out. It was Doris, her old friend, who typically couldn't hold back on her laughter. "You've been missed more than a good pie on Thanksgiving." The comment broke the tension, leading to a ripple of laughter. Slowly, Esther's gaze lifted, her lips trying to form a smile. I didn't know if I could come back," she admitted, her voice barely breaking through the kitchen's hearty chatter. "None of us knew what to say, either," Jake replied, sincerity etched into his features. "But we wanted you with us. We need each other, especially now." And just like that, the walls began to crumble. One by one, people began to share stories. The line that had divided them slowly transformed into a network of connection. "Let me tell you about my grandmother's chicken soup," a local butcher began. He recounted memories of being cradled in her arms, with the warm aroma filling their home, a moment that echoed in everyone's heart. As Esther listened, the intimacy of the shared experience buoyed her spirit. Family comforts, she whispered to herself, and suddenly the heaviness of her isolation began to lift, like the first light of dawn breaking through the winter chill. The meeting highlighted more than just MSG, it spotlighted the loss that had shadowed their community. People shared not only recipes but also their fears, their grief, and their hope for healing. By the time desserts were served, Sarah felt the atmosphere had shifted. Laughter rang once again. Esther was surrounded, the warm glow returning to her cheeks as she finally spoke. Maybe I've been too focused on my own hurt. I've lost not just Esther but the community that brought me so much joy. Her voice quaked, but there was strength behind it. In that moment, Sarah understood, they were becoming a family again, stitched together by love and understanding. People nodded, voices blending, echoing a sentiment that wrapped around the diner. Yet even as the atmosphere changed, Sarah sensed unfinished business lingering. A shadow crossed her heart as she remembered those who stayed away, still gripped by anger and whispers. Can we keep this going? She asked, fixing her gaze on the faces of her friends who beamed with possibility. Can we create a space for even those who didn't come today? We need to hear from everyone, even if it's hard. But just as she finished, the door swung open again, catching everyone's attention. A harsh wind followed, gusting inside, and in walked David, the very man who had led the protests against MSG. His face was stern, betraying none of the warmth the room had created. The air became thick once more, anticipation rising as they awaited what he would say next. Would he extend an olive branch or ignite the embers of conflict that had once burned brightly? All eyes turned to him, and Sarah's heart raced with a hopeful uncertainty. What was he about to unleash? The door swung shut, cutting off the gusting wind like a curtain falling, and for a moment, silence blanketed the diner. David stood there, apologies hanging on his lips, yet his posture screamed defiance. The laughter and chatter, which just moments ago filled the space with warmth, died down to whispers, apprehensive glances darting between him and Esther. Esther's heart raced as she searched his familiar face, hoping to find a hint of the kindness she once knew. Instead, his expression was unreadable, a mask forged from months of conflict and anger. She felt a flood of emotions rising, squeezed tightly within her chest. She had come here seeking solace, yet his presence threatened to reignite the smoldering tension. David, she started, her voice shaky. I didn't expect you to come. Neither did I, he replied, narrowing his eyes slightly, sizing up the scene before him. But we need to talk about this. Sarah shifted next to Esther, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. What do you mean? You know how hard this has been for us all. David's lips pressed into a thin line, and he took a step closer, his voice lower but firm. You're not the only one dealing with hurt. There are things we still need to clear up. Things that won't go away just because we're gathering here. His words cut through Esther's newfound warmth like ice water. Everyone was watching closely, eyes flickering back and forth in a mixture of fear and curiosity. David's tone was sharp but layered with an underlying hope, a desire to be heard, yet it felt like a reckless challenge to the fragile peace that had settled in the diner. David, this isn't just about you. It's bigger than any one person. We're trying, Jake began, standing up, his voice rising. Exactly. David interrupted, his gaze unwavering. This is about the MSG issue that has divided us. People are still hurt. Families are broken. Just sitting here and sharing Grandma's recipes isn't enough. Jenny, another regular who had kept quiet until now, interjected hesitantly, her voice barely a whisper. What do you suggest we do? Just keep fighting? Acknowledge the problems. David argued back, his intensity growing. This isn't just a kitchen table discussion. We need to address the real impact and the anger it caused. Esther felt as if giants were battling in her chest, the conflict between her yearning for unity against the harsh reality of division echoed in her mind. I thought maybe we could start here, she said, her voice strained and quivering. Maybe if we shared, really shared, we'd find some common ground. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, yet several faces remained taut with apprehension, and the unsettled emotions hung thick in the air. "Then let us hear from everyone," David proposed, but, despite his ardent plea, uncertainty clouded the moment. Esther's heart ached, sensing the dreaded rift widen. Some faces were willing to soften, while others clenched tight with resentment. "Why not start with us?" Sarah raised her voice, breaking through the tension. "Let us tell what we've lost. What we hope to regain." The room held its breath, teetering on the edge. Would their truth-telling ignite more pain, or would it weave them together in unexpected ways? As each word hung in the air, Esther realized the emotional weight of the moment, the chance they had to choose understanding over conflict. But who would bear that weight first? Even as some began to share their stories, Esther found herself fixated on David, wondering what stories he carried and if they would open the floodgates or set them all adrift again. As she pondered the uncertainty, a sudden noise erupted from the back, a loud crash that sent silverware clattering to the ground. All eyes darted toward the noise. What now? What fresh chaos was about to unfold? The crash echoed off the walls of the diner, sending a ripple of alarm through the crowd. Glasses rattled on their tables and whispering voices fell to an abrupt hush. Esther's stomach twisted. What now? The uncertainty hung in the air, thick as fog. She turned in the direction of the sound, her heart racing. A tall figure loomed over the crumpled remains of a chair, a young man named Kyle, his face flushed with embarrassment. He looked around at the onlookers, eyes wide and searching, then knelt to gather the stray pieces. "Sorry," he mumbled, looking more sheepish than defiant. "I didn't mean to interrupt," but the interruption had already done its work. Tension crackled in the air now, but it was something different. A reminder of their shared humanity, perhaps. People began to chuckle nervously, the air lightening momentarily. David's clenched jaw relaxed just a fraction as he caught Kyle's eye. "Just don't leap out of your seat like that, buddy," he quipped. "It's not a wrestling match." A few smirks emerged in the gathering, and the fragile tension in the diner eased just a bit more. Esther felt the invisible thread of connection begin binding them together again. A wave of relief washed over her. Maybe the chasm between them was not as insurmountable as she had thought. "Let us keep our chairs on the ground, huh?" Esther added, keeping her voice gentle, willing to turn this moment into something hopeful. "We're here to listen and to share. Let us be honest and open." David's eyes flicked to Esther, a mixture of gratitude and concern stirring within him. Underneath their shared history, there was still a flicker of understanding. This was a chance to redefine things, to take the hurt and reshape it into healing. "Okay, then," David said, his voice steadying. "I'll go first." The murmurs quieted again, all eyes on him. He took a deep breath, facing everyone, and it felt like they were all leaning in, ready to catch whatever words fell from his lips. "It's hard," he started, "to watch everything unravel. My family has been split since the MSG debates began. Every meal has felt charged with anger, doubts, and guilt. I miss the laughter, the gatherings that used to mean something. For me, this isn't just about ingredients, it's about losing parts of ourselves and each other." Esther felt the aching weight of his words settle among them. She could see the flickers of pain on her neighbors' faces, echoes of their own stories beginning to surface. Jake nodded, his voice crackling with emotion. "The distrust is so deep. What do we even believe in anymore? It's not just food we're scared of, it's each other." As Kyle began to share, recounting the loss of friendships and familiar faces, Esther's heart soared with a bittersweet ache. Everyone was standing on that fragile line, haunted but also longing for something better, some form of reconciliation. "I lost my mother because of the rift. She believed in one side," Kyle admitted, wiping a tear. "Now, no Thanksgiving feels complete, just a bunch of empty seats and silence." Every spoken word paved a path to vulnerability, stoking the fires of shared grief and hope. Then, just when the air began to hum with connection, the bell over the diner door jingled again. A new figure stepped inside, casting a long shadow across the gathering. Voices fell silent again, and the collective pulse of the diner shifted as the newcomer made eye contact with David. Esther felt the tension shift once more, and her heart raced. Who was this person? What did they know? And why had they come now, just as they were beginning to find their way back toward one another? What secrets would this intruder unravel? Esther's breath hitched as the figure stepped further into the diner. The newcomer was a woman, her face familiar but laced with uncertainty. It was Angela, David's sister. The last Esther had heard, Angela had distanced herself from the family, taking a stand on the MSG debate just like her brother. Angela's voice quivered as she approached him. Esther could see the emotions dance in David's eyes, shock and something deeper, a mix of hope and dread. Why are you here? David asked, his tone guarded. Angela paused, searching his face for something. Maybe forgiveness? Relief? I wanted to talk. I didn't know you were holding this meeting. The crowd seemed to close in on them, each person caught in a web of silent whispers. Underneath the rising tension, Esther could feel the collective longing for reconciliation. I know we haven't agreed on a lot, Angela said, her gaze dropping to the floor, then rising defiantly to meet her brother's. But I think I've said enough from the sidelines. I'm here to listen. To really listen. Esther held her breath. Their history was a tangled 1 years of battling over their beliefs and opinions. It had pulled them apart, just when they needed each other the most. But here was Angela stepping into the fire. It took guts. The silence stretched before them, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. David's expression shifted, an internal battle raging. Finally, he nodded, breaking the tension. Okay, then let us hear what you have to say, he replied, a thread of vulnerability creeping into his voice. Angela straightened, her shoulders squared like a warrior preparing for a fight. I think we've all been trapped in our own corners for too long, she said, her voice steady. My mind was made up, but it stole my peace. I realized my anger doesn't fix anything. It only deepened wounds. Esther could see heads nodding around the diner. There was a kindred spirit rising in the room, an urge to heal seeping through the cracks. Not everyone will feel the same, she continued, her eyes scanning the crowd. But we can start here. Acknowledging the pain, the losses, and working towards understanding. David inhaled deeply, his chest rising as if each word Angela spoke lifted a weight from him. The challenge ahead was daunting, but there was something potent in the air, a potential for change. Kyle piped up, his voice tentative yet strong. I think we all feel the same. It's not about the MSG anymore, it's about our families, our lives. We need to find a way back to each other. Hesitation morphed into tentative agreement, whispers of encouragement rippling through the crowd. Esther felt her heart swell, a tight knot loosening as members of the gathering began to share their own stories of separation and longing. As they spoke, a sense of community began to blossom in the diner, light filtering through the cracks of vulnerability they had diligently kept closed. But just as optimism began to flourish, Angela's phone buzzed sharply on the table, and she glanced at the notification. A look of concern creased her brows. It's about Mom, she murmured, her voice now tinged with urgency. She wants to talk to all of us. She's scared. The room went still, anticipation thrumming in the air. Was this a chance for deep healing, a moment to bring them all back together? Could confronting pain also lead to reunions? Esther watched the faces around her, the shifting emotions sparking hope. The next step felt monumental, yet fragile, like a fern unfurling after a long winter. What would happen when they gathered together? Would the weight of the past pull them under, or would it pave the way to something more profound? The air in the diner was thick with a blend of hope and anxiety. As Angela's words hung suspended, Esther could almost feel each heartbeat echoing in the stillness. She looked at David, the pain of their past lingering in the corners of his expression. Do you think she really wants to talk? He finally asked, his voice barely a whisper, betraying a crack of uncertainty. I can't say for sure, Angela replied. Her eyes darkened with shadows of worry. But I think she realizes that things can't stay the way they are. Not anymore. Esther felt her pulse quicken. They had been carrying their family's baggage for too long. The sight of David's weary face ignited a flame of urgency within her. They had a chance here, a chance that many families would crave but never find. Maybe we should go. If she wants us there, Kyle suggested, looking tentative but driven. The glances he exchanged with other diners reflected a shared determination. What if she's not ready? Angela challenged, her brow knitted. What if she can't face what's been done? Then we stand with her, David said firmly, his earlier trepidation melting under the heat of resolve. If we're all scared, then we face it together. Esther couldn't help but nod. There was something electrifying in the air, a whisper of courage rising within each of them. Okay, let us do it. We need to find out where she is, Angela said, a flicker of fierce determination igniting in her. As Esther watched Angela, she marveled at her courage. It took a fleet of emotions to bridge a chasm created by years of conflict. A hunger formed in her heart, one to see this journey through, to stand witness as they transformed the hurt they carried. Can we meet somewhere neutral? Kyle suggested, a practical edge to his voice. Maybe the park? Somewhere Mom used to take us? David's face brightened at the idea, sparking a faint smile. That's perfect. It'll remind her of better times. Angela's phone buzzed again, slicing through their moment. She glanced down, her expression shifting. She texted the address. It's at the old oak tree by the lake. A collective exhale punctuated the air, blending anxiety with anticipation. Esther felt a tremor in her hands. The weight of history loomed large, but somehow, the thought of facing it together made it feel lighter. Let us go, David said, standing taller. Esther noticed that glimmer of hope flickered back into his eyes. It was time to shift the narrative from division to togetherness. As they all gathered their things, a buzz of conversation erupted, and the din of life returned to the diner, sparking a newly entwined sense of purpose. Plans were laid, a tentative road to healing and understanding beginning to form in the air like a fragile thread weaving them closer together. But when they stepped outside, a sharp wind greeted them, swirling eerily, brushing against their skin. It sent a shiver of doubt rushing through Esther. What if their mother's fears ran deeper than they realized? What if their attempt to mend what was broken only opened old wounds? As they made their way toward the lake, questions spiraled like the leaves caught in the gusts. Would they be prepared for the weight of the secrets they might unearth? As they approached the old oak tree, they could see a figure waiting beneath its sprawling branches, their mother. But her shoulders were hunched, her body tense, as if holding a lifetime of secrets. Esther's breath caught in her throat. Could what lay ahead be the moment they had all been waiting for, or would it be a reckoning that shattered them all? Once again, hope fought against fear as anticipation tangled in the air surrounding them. Would they find the healing they so desperately sought, or would the past drag them back into darkness? The old oak tree loomed ahead, a sentinel of their fractured family history. As they approached, Esther's heart raced with every step. It felt like crossing a rickety bridge over a deep ravine. She wanted to reach the other side but feared what awaited her there. Their mother stood motionless, her back to them, seemingly lost in thought as the wind tousled her hair. It was like she didn't even notice them coming. The years of silence loomed in the space between them. Esther shared concerned glances with David and Angela. This was a pivotal moment, yet it felt uncertain, like the air before a storm. Mom? David called gently. The figure flinched, her shoulders jerking slightly. Slowly, she turned to face them, a mask of apprehension etched across her features. Her blue eyes, once full of warmth, now seemed almost hollow, shadowed by memories that had taken their toll. She was their mother, yet a stranger too. Are you really here? She asked, her voice trembling as though it was pulling itself from the depths of her heart. Esther stepped forward until she felt the weight of her brothers beside her, their presence a shield against the fears that flooded back. We came to talk, Mom. To listen, she offered, her voice softer than a whisper, but steady with a resolve she didn't fully understand. For a moment, silence enveloped them. The world around them faded, the distant laughter of children, the rustling leaves, even the sun dipping low in the sky. It was just the four of them, standing there, breaking the silence that had shielded them for far too long. "I thought you didn't want to see me," their mother finally said, her voice cracking. "No, Mom, it's not that," Kyle interjected, his youthful innocence shining through the weight of sadness. "We've just been lost too." Esther could see her mother's eyes glistening, a torrent of emotion surging just beneath the surface. It was at once heartbreaking and hopeful, more than she had seen in years. "What do you want from me?" "I'm not the person you remember," their mother managed, the frailty in her tone unmistakable. "We just want to understand," Angela stepped in, clutching her sibling's hands. "We want to be a family again. We can't change the past, but we can try to move forward." Esther held her breath, waiting. Would their mother let them in? Would she allow herself to be vulnerable with them? The fear she felt now was tinged with a kind of hope, a wish that maybe they could finally begin to unravel the story that was still being told. With shaky hands, their mother brushed a tear away, a ghost of a smile breaking through the storm of emotions. "I never wanted to hurt you, I just didn't know how to protect you." And just like that, the barriers began to crack. They were small, delicate fissures, frail and fragile, but Esther could feel the shift. Hope edged its way into the cracks. They could heal. They could bridge the years of silence. That promise hung heavy yet beautifully in the air. But as their mother took a hesitant step closer, a sudden noise broke the moment, a sharp crack followed by a rustle in the underbrush. 4 pairs of eyes turned to the source, uncertainty flooding them once again. What else was lurking in the shadows of their past? What secrets had been buried so deep that they could still reach out, disrupt their heart-to-heart? With their fragile hope on the line, they stood at a crossroads once more. Would this be the healing they sought, or another twist in their complicated narrative? The silence that followed the crack felt like a pendulum, swinging dangerously close to breaking all they had just begun to rebuild. The moment stretched, holding its breath. "Did you hear that?" David whispered, tension tightening his voice. Their mother's expression shifted. One moment she was fragile and open, and the next, a shadow of fear crossed her features. "It's probably just animals. This place, it can be wild," she said, her voice thick with uncertainty. Esther squeezed Angela's hand, seeking comfort in her sister's warmth. Deep down, she knew this was more than just wild animals. The bushes rustled again, a shuffle that held the weight of their past. Esther took a deep breath, mustering the courage to confront whatever lay hidden in the shadows. "Mom, if we can face this together, we can face anything," she urged, her voice stronger now. "We have to take that first step." Their mother hesitated, glancing back toward the noise, her eyes flickering with something close to panic. But she looked back at her children, and for the first time, Esther could see a flicker, the desire to confront the truth alongside them. Then the rustling turned louder. They all stared at the bushes, breaths caught in their throats. The moment teetered on the edge of fear and hope. "Just stay close," their mother finally said. She stepped forward, gathering her courage like a cloak around her. Esther had never felt so proud of her mother, this woman who had once seemed so lost. From within the bushes, a figure emerged, not a wild animal, but a man. The instant he stepped into the light, Esther felt a rush of recognition wash over her. It wasn't just any stranger, it was Jack, the man who had been a ghost in their lives, their mother's friend from long ago. The man whose name had always hovered in the background like the unannounced guest at a family reunion. Jack's face bore the marks of age, but the warmth of his smile lit up the gloom surrounding them. "I didn't expect to see you all here," he said gently. "I've been looking for you." Esther's heart sank. How much did he know? Why was he looking for them now? Why? Angela spoke, her voice trembling. "What do you want from us?" Jack looked at their mother, then back at the 3 siblings, emotion rising in his eyes. "I came to help. I know what she's been through. We all have scars, but there's a chance to heal, and I want to be part of that." Esther glanced at her mother, who stood frozen, a mixture of anger and hurt flashing across her face. "How can you just show up like this?" Her voice cracked, raw and pained. Because, June, he said softly, using her name like a lifeline, there's something you need to hear. Something you all deserve to know. Heavy anticipation gripped the air. What secrets, hidden even from them, did he possess? The urge for revelation swirled within Esther, but so did the unease. Her hope rested on a fragile thread, one that could snap with the truth. The shadows of the oak tree seemed to deepen, casting long fingers of uncertainty over them all. What lay ahead could change everything they had just begun to mend. Please, she whispered, tell us what you know. The words hung in the air, full of promise and dread, as they stood on the edge of a revelation that could shatter their world once again. Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself as he looked each of them in the eye. The weight of the moment hung thick around them. Esther could feel tremors of anxiety slicing through the air. This isn't easy to say, and I'm not here to hurt anyone. But you all deserve the truth. Their mother shifted, visibly tense, but mustered the courage to ask, what truth? Jack glanced towards the ground before letting his eyes flick up to meet theirs again. Years ago, when everything fell apart, there were things that happened that you weren't told. It wasn't just about fights or misunderstandings. Esther steeled herself, and her fingers entwined tightly with Angela's. What do you mean? Jack hesitated, as if weighing each word carefully. There were pressures, conflicts that went beyond the family involving the diner and customers. I was there when it began, when people started blaming each other for MSG, for health issues, for anything they wanted to grasp. Your mother cared deeply and tried to shield you from that world, but it created rifts that you weren't aware of. Esther could feel her mother flinch at his words, anger radiating off her. You were supposed to protect us too. Not just turn a blind eye. We all were to blame, Jack interjected, frustration seeping through his calm exterior. I was too close, blinded by my own emotions. But it's clear to me now you've all felt the impact of division because we allowed fear to fester. Kyle stepped forward, hair tousled by the wind, but his voice was strong. So what do we do now, Jack? Do we just keep pointing fingers, or can we find a way to heal? Jack opened his mouth to respond, but their mother suddenly interjected, her voice strong yet trembling. Was I really that blind? Did I fail you all by not including you in these conversations? It was hard, June, Jack explained softly. You were trying to protect them. Everyone hopes that by keeping the darkness away, your loved ones will never have to face its shadows. But secrets don't stay bundled up forever, they fester, they rot, and eventually, they come to light. A beat of silence hung between them all, the efforts of each heart visibly straining against the weight of long-held secrets. Esther could feel tears pooling in her eyes. The past hadn't just been a story of anger and resentment, it was a collective hurt, cascading through generations. Angela spoke up, her voice remarkably calm. We can't just let this moment slip away. Yes, we need to face the truth, but also acknowledge that it's a part of us. As they stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a winter past, the old oak tree remained a witness, roots gripping the rich earth. Esther felt the walls of their family's heart contract and expand, each pulse a step toward healing. In that moment, she understood the power of vulnerability, how it bridged divides, opened the doors they had barricaded shut for years. Their mother nodded slowly, taking a step toward Jack. So what happens now? How do we involve everyone? By nurturing understanding and forgiveness, Jack replied, hope shimmering in his eyes. Begin by sharing your stories publicly, creating a safe space to connect. Help others understand it's not just about ingredients, it's about lives intertwined through food, laughter, and love. Esther's heart soared as she imagined it. A gathering not out of fear, but of healing. And we can bring everyone back, open the diner where this all began, not just with recipes, but with heartfelt connections, alive with empathy. Yes. Jake exclaimed, energy crackling through him. We can even invite the community back, foster connection beyond the bitterness that strained us. We can be the example. Their mother's eyes glistened with tears, the barriers that had once seemed insurmountable began to crumble. If we reach out, we might find those who share our struggles, perhaps even those who feared us. Angela stepped beside her. It's time to build anew. Remember when the diner became the heart of our community? Let us rekindle that spirit. Let us embrace understanding. Jack smiled, seeing their unity. Blooming like sunlight breaking through frost. You have the power to create something beautiful from these ashes of hurt. The diner can become a sanctuary again, a new beginning. Esther took a deep breath, exhilarated and terrified all at once. Then let us do it. Let us put out our hearts together, and invite others to share their stories. As they stood there beneath the old oak, Esther felt their family once so fractured begin to weave together. They shared hope, laughter, and vulnerability, tracing back to their roots while stepping bravely into the branches of the future. They would embrace the joy in cooking, in flavor, in the scents that had comforted them through generations. They would share meals, conversations, and the connections that had been severed, relishing in the warmth that came from authentic community. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, they began walking back, a powerful conviction lifting their spirits. The road to healing wouldn't be simple, scars would take time to mend. But together, they would navigate the journey, forging a new legacy that would honor the loves and losses they had collectively experienced while nurturing their beloved diner back to life. And as hope danced in their hearts, Esther realized this wasn't the end, but a beautiful, inspired beginning. So let us stand together, let us turn this journey into an unbreakable bond. And now, before moving forward, I have to urge you subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Your support matters, each action amplifies our connection.